welcome to another episode of Read It with Whiskey. I am your host, self-published author, Laura Juntunen. My series, the Shockwave series, is now available. The first two of the three are now available on Amazon. Go ahead and check it out. But today, we are going to be talking to Ireen Chau. So let's get into the episode. Ireen Chau is a longtime artist, writer, and above all, a lover of stories. She is located in Los Angeles, California, where she attends art school full-time. She hopes to snag a job in the animation industry, but if not, she has several backup careers in the works, including being an author and a middle grade PE teacher. When not reading, writing, or drawing, Ireen can be found browsing the internet for memes and watching YouTube commentary videos. You can visit her website, which we'll talk about at the end of this episode, for news about her future projects. So today we're talking to Ireen about her book, The Herbwitch's Apprentice, which is the first book in her series. We'll also touch on the second book that's hopefully going to be coming out soon. So The Herbwitch's Apprentice. In the kingdom of Aldaria, dabbling in witchcraft is a sure way to the guillotine. When 16-year-old debutante Amaranth Flora finds out she's half witch, all she wants is to get rid of her magic. After all, zapping Prince Ash in the midst of high society's season certainly won't help her troublemaking reputation. But the more her powers grow, the more she realizes magic, and the witches who possess it, are not as dangerous as she was led to believe. When the queen falls mysteriously ill, Amaranth knows there are far more dangers lurking in the palace than in Witch Village. Among potion brewing and glittering receptions, Amaranth joins Prince Ash in an investigation before innocent witches are condemned. However, uncovering the culprit schemes could mean exposing her magic, and exposing her magic would mean her very life, and the contempt of the prince she is trying to help. For being so young, Ireen has done a lot, and it's funny because I actually found her through her artwork before I found her through her book. So I actually follow her on Instagram, and I follow her character art that she does for various different people in the self-publishing industry, as well as she works on her own projects for her own books as well. She's an incredible artist, and I definitely know she's going to go big places with her artistry. So that's how I initially found her. But then I actually entered a giveaway, and that's how I came across The Herbwitch's Apprentice, because I won her book. So I won her book, it came to my house, I read it, and then I knew that I had to have her on the show. So I reached out to Ireen, and here we are. So I'm so excited to get into this interview, so let's get into it. Welcome to Read It with Whiskey, the interview podcast featuring science fiction and fantasy authors. My name is Laura Juntunen, your host and the author of the Shockwave series. I am also a book club moderator, speaker, and avid reader, truly invested in every author's story. Within this podcast, I bring to you, the reader, all the behind-the-scenes secrets to how these guest indie authors bring their books into the world. If you are a sci-fi fantasy reader, then you need to hear from these authors. Let's learn about the person behind the page. Sit back, sip some whiskey, and lean in to these self-published authors. It is time for a little Laura J Live update, and you guys, this episode and the next following 3 episodes, I am not going to be giving you guys a live Laura J Live update, but I'm going to be giving you a hopeful update because for the next 2 months, I am going to be focusing on a lot. I am going to be planning out book 3 in my series all throughout October, and then within November, I'm going to be writing my first draft of that book, which is titled Static Equilibrium. And so to prepare for that and for how much time I'm going to have to dedicate to that process, I've decided that I am pre-recording all these episodes. So this episode with Ireen, as well as the episode with Kaya Carrington Russell, which will come up next week, and the next 2, which will be with Kristen Martin and Patrick Johns, all of these episodes are going to be pre-recorded, and I'm going to be guessing at what I'm working at. So it's going to be a little bit of a game. And then when we come back for our December episodes, I will kind of reevaluate and see if I actually hit those goals from these 4 episodes. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I can't wait to come back in December and see what goals I actually accomplished. So it is midway through October right now with Ireen Chau's episode coming out today. I'm so excited to have her on the show. And right about this time in mid-October, I'm going to be drafting the 3rd book in the Shockwave series. So Static Equilibrium is going to continue straight off from book 2, Oscillation Rising, which just published on September 28th. So if you haven't gotten your hands on that, definitely do that. But yes, I'm going to be outlining book 3 by the time this episode comes out. So outlining is not something that I'm very good at. It is not something that I do on a regular basis. I am a pantser. So Transient Pulse and Oscillation Rising, I sat down and I started writing without really any type of goal in mind. I knew where the characters had to end at the end of the book. That was everything. I did not know what other characters would come up, who would end up dying or living or getting hurt, if there would be any side characters. I really had no idea. So with that being said, for the first 2 books, I knew I had to have everything a little bit more structured for book 3 because it is the end of the series. So at this point in mid-October, I hope that I am at least halfway through the outline for this book. Again, since this is a new process for me, I really don't know how well I'm going to be at plotting. Part of me thinks I'm going to scrap the whole plotting idea and just pants my way through it because that's what I know. So we shall see. I will definitely come back in December and let you guys know how all of this went. But yeah, that's our little update for Laura J Live today. And yeah, let's get into this episode with Ireen. Hello, Ireen, and welcome to Read It with Whiskey. How are you doing today?
I am good. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you, and we're going to dive into your book, The Herbwitch's Apprentice. But before we even dive into the book, I just want you to tell everybody, why did you decide to start writing?
So listening to the past episodes of Read It with Whiskey, I feel like we all have very similar answers, and that stories have always just been a part of my life. And I was a really big reader, and I loved watching movies, like especially the animated ones. And so writing was just one of the creative outlets I used to tell the stories in my head, along with drawing. But I came back to writing once I went to art school because art became mandatory. So I was like, I need to find something else now.
And you are a full-time student. You're in your last year. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So what do you want to do with that degree once you're out of school?
So I'm majoring in animation right now, and I really hope to get a job in the animation industry, either as a character designer or maybe even a writer, honestly. I've been thinking about it. But yeah, just to get my foot in the door, and like character design is like my dream job. But if I can't do that, then maybe illustration, or if I find something else, then that's fine too. But I do have like being an indie author as like a backup career just in case.
And it's an awesome side gig if you can't do it full time right away. But
Yeah.
at the rate you're going, you've got some incredible things going on. As an art major, that's actually how I found you, was with your character art. That's how I initially came across you. And then I saw that you wrote a book. I entered a giveaway. I won the giveaway, and that's how your book came to me. So it's crazy how everything kind of came full circle. And so
Yeah.
if you continue doing your character art, I think you could build like an entire career off of that just from the work I've seen of yours online. But anyway, so when you decided that you wanted to publish The Herbwitch's Apprentice, why did you decide that you wanted to do self-publishing versus a traditional route?
So I chose self-publishing because the traditional YA market isn't really what it used to be. I realized I was writing for a market that did not exist anymore because The Herbwitch's Apprentice was very heavily inspired by the early 20 teens YA genre, especially the middle grade genre. And you don't see a lot of those books around anymore. And another reason is because self-publishing gave me a lot of creative freedom. I got to design my own cover and like tell the story I wanted to tell. And that was really, really a fun experience.
Definitely so much fun. And I'm going to get into that in a bit about what you did to design your own book. But tell our listeners so then they can get it straight from you. What is The Herbwitch's Apprentice all about?
Oh boy, this question always makes me so nervous because I'm like, do I even know what this book is about? So The Herbwitch's Apprentice is a Regency-inspired YA slash middle grade coming of age fantasy, and it follows a girl who discovers that she is half witch in a kingdom where witches and magic are taboo. And while she's trying to discover her powers, she has to attend high society season as a debutante, where she has to like attend all these events and like society social stuff. And she's like right under the nose of the royals who seem to hate magic so much. And also, the queen gets poisoned. There's a whole mystery around that, but you're gonna have to read it to find out.
Yes, we won't go into the details of that whole part. But yeah, this book was really good. And when I read it, I'm pretty sure I read it in about a day and a half. I remember posting on Instagram. I was like, oh, I'm starting this book. And then later that day or the next morning, I was like, oh, I finished this book. And it was so funny getting ready for this interview. I basically had to go back and scroll through because I didn't want to forget anything. And there was so much within the story that adds to the plot and to the characters that I had forgotten about. And I was so excited to go back through it and get ready for the interview because I just remember so much more to the story instead of just like the bare synopsis kind of thing.
That's why like that question makes me nervous because there's like a lot you have to explain.
Mm-hmm. There's like a lot of moving parts, a lot of secrets and things that don't get revealed right away, which was really, really fun to find out the ending. We're not going to give spoilers today. But yeah, you said you were inspired by some different books in the YA genres from the 20 teens. Was there anything specific? Because for me, part of the whole debutante section of the story reminded me of like the traditional Cinderella story. Is there any specific stories that it was inspired from?
Jessica Day George. She wrote Dragon Slippers. It's like a middle grade fantasy about like dragons and adventure. It's very like fairy tale-esque, and her whole genre is middle grade fairy tale retellings kind of vibe. And I was really inspired by that, and I wanted to emulate that in The Herbwitch's Apprentice. And books aside, I was also really inspired by the Barbie films.
I love it.
I just think they're so fun and so whimsical and so like, you know, it has that good feel good vibe. So I really wanted to channel that too. And also Jane Austen. I was reading a lot of Jane Austen while I was drafting my book. So the Regency inspiration kind of crept in there.
Very cool. I love listening to the inspiration stories because there's so many different points that you can take from so many different stories and then you kind of mash it into your own work. And I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the biggest question that people ask you about this book? Is there a certain question that always comes back?
Yes. The question is, are there any illustrations in it? There aren't, which I know is super misleading because my Instagram page is filled with art. There aren't any included in the actual book, but I do plan for the sequel to be illustrated though. And I might come back and illustrate this one later.
So exciting. You could probably even make like a coloring book out of it or something. Yeah. I think that would be so cool. But let's talk about the actual graphics of the book because the book is so pretty. For one, it's just gorgeous. And then inside, even the formatting and everything is really pretty with like all the headings. There's the 3 sections, the Gentleman's Daughter, Herbwitch's Apprentice, and then the Unfading Flower that are graphicked. So what was that process like? Was it difficult to do? Had you had experience doing that?
Not at all. I had such a hard time with formatting. I think that was by far the most difficult part of the process. I just wanted to tear my hair out. There's so many things that went wrong, but thanks to YouTube and like some fiddling with InDesign, I figured it out. And thank God I figured it out.
And now that you know how to do all that, it'll be a lot easier for the sequel and books following.
Oh, so that's I actually plan to hire someone else. I don't want to do this again.
I love it. So as a self-published author, what do you think is your favorite part about being an author in general?
My favorite part is by far when readers come back to me and tell me what they thought about the book, because it's kind of surreal to think that the story I typed up alone in my futon for like 2 months, just by myself, made it into the hands of so many different people. You know, it's just really cool to see people come back and say how much they liked it. And it really means a lot.
Yes, it was so good. Did you really write it in only 2 months?
Yeah, it was 2 months and a half because I was very strict with myself since The Herbwitch's Apprentice was my very first book that I ever finished. So I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this. So I had like a set word count every day, and I kind of just kept going.
I love that. Are you a pantser? Did you just sit down and write it, or did you have to plot things out as you went?
I pantsed at first,
Okay.
and after I was like 30% through, I had a good idea of where the story was going, so I went back and outlined everything.
Okay, very cool. And the split up sections, I already mentioned them before. There's 3 distinct sections within the book. Was that planned originally, or did that come about after the fact?
That was planned originally because I was following the 3 act structure.
Okay.
Yeah, from Save the Cat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just titled the parts.
I love it. And it breaks it up so nicely because you have basically the before, the during, and then the after, and what happens after the fact, and all of the juicy stuff that you find out. So let's dive into the story a little bit. So our main character is Amaranth, and I absolutely love that you put it in the book. Her name is Amaranth, but when I first read it, I read it as Amarante. And you even said Google listens to it or thinks of it as Amarante, and then you put it in the book, it's Amaranth. Was that something that people had been mispronouncing and that's why you put it in the book, or was it just coincidence?
The former. Yeah, I mean, technically I'm the one who mispronounced it because it is technically Amarante, but I just didn't like how that sounded. So
Yeah.
I changed it.
And I like that it kind of mirrors basically her rebellious personality too, is be like, nope, this is how you pronounce my name.
Yeah, that works.
So yeah, she is rebellious. She is a troublemaker. And that kind of led into why she had to be in the season, or this debutante ball-esque thing, in order to find basically who you're going to end up marrying. So that whole concept, was that fun to kind of play with and develop the different like tasks they had to do? What was that like?
Yeah, that was super fun. Yeah, like I said, I was very inspired by Jane Austen, Regency-esque novels. Coming up with the events was kind of difficult because in like the actual season in London, there's a lot of like balls and like teas and like soirees and stuff. And I'm just like, that sounds kind of boring. It's just like gatherings and stuff. So I added like a rowboat scene just to change up the environment a little bit.
No, I really liked the rowboat scene. That was exciting. And it plays into something that happens later on, which was really cool too. But we're not going to talk about that because we don't want to talk about any spoilers. Let's just say that's a good scene. Pay attention. Okay, so let's talk about the world building. You based this type of world off of what you said, all your inspirations. Did you come up with the magic system on your own, or was that something you based off of something else?
So I'll be honest, I am not a very good world builder. Like not even a little bit. There are people who like go really in depth with all like the whole Bible of like world building stuff. Right. I can't do that. I BS'd everything so hard. And I probably shouldn't admit this, but it's true.
Oh, that's totally fine.
Yeah, all my beta readers, like I have to thank my beta readers because they're like, oh, this doesn't really make sense. They're like, you can't do that with your magic system. And I'm like, okay. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to thank my beta readers for that.
Oh, that is too funny. And now moving into the second book, you're gonna have to think back and make sure it all aligns. I bet that's gonna be an interesting feat.
Yeah, I'll try my best.
Well, you did create at least a little bit of a structure for the witches, and there are herb witches and there are also charm witches. So do you want to explain to the listeners what the difference is between those types of witches?
So herb witches basically specialize in magic that involves the natural world, like plants, animals, something like that. And for charm witches, it's more like enchantments, changing the color of something, for example. Like more like wizardy kind of things.
I like that there was that distinction, and you kind of learn about it through some of the characters too, which is really fun. Okay, so we're not going to go on to talk about like why was the queen poisoned or like who poisoned her. We can't talk about any of that. But there are so many different characters who I really loved, and like I said, we're not going to go into details because we're going to end up giving away spoilers. But I would love to know, out of all the characters that you wrote within this book, who was your favorite to write?
My favorite was by far Prince Ash,
Okay.
which is Amaranth's love interest slash partner in crime. Yeah, he's like really similar to her in that he's also a troublemaker and like super fun and like kind of like sassy a little bit. I just really liked writing their interactions and like their banter and stuff.
They had really fun interactions. I liked the instigating that they did and the little research and trying to figure out what's going on. Their partnership was really, really cool. I would say my favorite was Tori because she's kind of like the person who she stands out at the debutante ball. She stands out in that world because she just doesn't quite fit in.
Yeah.
So where did the inspiration for her come from?
It's like the inspiration came from a really obscure animated film. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Leap. And it's basically like a ballet. 2 orphan kids go to Paris to pursue their dreams kind of film. And one of the characters is like very similar to Tori in that she's a little bit like, how do I say, like not delicate, just like very loud and funny kind of girl, the comedic relief character, if you may.
Yes, definitely.
Inspiration came from that. I don't really know how to explain it.
But... No, that makes sense. Yeah. I've actually seen Leap. It was a really, really long time ago. I think when it first came out.
Oh yeah, it's such a great film.
Yeah, it was really good. And now I can see that a little bit in Tori. But yeah, she's kind of that like rough around the edges, like hardworking girl. And she's around all of these little hoity-toity princesses who are like, oh, I broke a nail.
Yeah.
And so she definitely comic relief, like you said. And I think it just put a good twist on things because I think Amaranth needed that type of character to be in the story with her to help her and move her forward. And the same thing for like having her stepsister Genevieve within the story and having their relationship and how that grows throughout. I just thought that was really cool too. And then we have like the witches, but we're not going to talk about who the witches are because we don't want to give that away either. There's just so much we can give away. But no, I really, really enjoyed this story and I really liked the ending of it and how it came to be. And then as soon as I finished it, I saw that you posted that you were going to have a sequel, The Herbwitch's Princess. So is that book continuing on with Amaranth's story, or can you tell us who that story is about?
It's actually a spin-off sequel. So it follows another character in The Herbwitch's Apprentice, and her name is Narcissa. And if you read the first book, then you should know who she is, but I won't say anything else. And I do plan for it to be illustrated. And I just finished drafting it a few weeks ago, actually. And I'm in the middle of edits. So hopefully I can get that finished up during school somehow.
Oh, that'll be tough. Definitely being in school full time and then writing at the same time. And then you have your character design Instagram business to run as well. You're a busy one. You're busy. When it comes to Narcissa's story, don't give us too many spoilers, but is it a past story or is it from the end of the Herbwitch's Apprentice forward? Can you tell us that?
Yeah, it's end forward. It's like 6 months after.
Okay, cool. Oh, I'm so excited because I really, really liked her character and I want to see where it goes. So this is very entertaining to me.
Thank you.
What do you think was the most difficult aspect of writing this book? And what advice would you give to other people who want to write a book themselves?
The most difficult thing for me was believing in myself that I could write it because I had a lot of self-doubt coming into it since I've never finished a book before this. I was like, can I do it? Can I do it? And there's like a lot of crippling self-doubt. For new writers, my advice would be to just believe in yourself, which sounds very cheesy. But, if I can do it, so can you. And I think the most important thing for me and able to like prove that to myself was to have a very strict schedule. Setting word counts would be really helpful. Like I'm gonna cut out this amount of space to write, like from 7 to 10, I'm gonna write every single night. And having that schedule just really worked for me. Yeah.
Very cool. I think that's a good one too. I definitely work the best and write the best when I have a structure like that. And that's how I usually do my first draft is like, okay, 30 days straight, I'm going to write X amount of words. get it down on paper and then worry about all of the nitty-gritty details after the fact.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to write crap.
Exactly. Well, your book isn't crap. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so at the end of the interviews here, I usually ask what type of whiskey you like to drink, but you're not 21 yet. So what is it that you do at the end of the day to kind of wind down and relax?
I like to go on YouTube and watch a bunch of random stupid videos.
I love it. Can you give us an example? What type of videos?
You know, those meme compilations. There's like a bunch of meme videos and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's very mind-numbing.
That's fun though. Does it ever inspire you to like draw anything or do anything in that aspect? Or is it just totally to relax?
Yeah, totally to relax.
I love that. It's so much fun. All right. Well, awesome. This has been so much fun. So Ireen, tell us, where can our listeners find you and find everything that you do online?
My author Instagram is at the Herbwitch's Apprentice, and my art Instagram is beanirene18, and I take like character commissions and stuff. And the Herbwitch's Apprentice is available on Amazon in ebook and paperback.
And then the Herbwitch's Princess, we're not sure when it's coming out quite yet, but hopefully within the next year or two, you think?
Yeah, within the next year, I hope.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ireen, for being on this show. I had so much fun talking with you.
So did I. Thank you so much for having me.
Speaking with Ireen was really enlightening. I feel like she has so much that she's going to give to the self-publishing world, and she doesn't even realize it. I don't know if you've ever come across that type of person where you realize they're going to be doing really good things and they don't know about it yet. They're not aware of it yet. And I feel like Ireen is one of these people. She's in her last year of college. She has already been doing incredible things through graphic design and character artwork just through Instagram. And I just can't even speak highly enough about her art skills and all of the work that I've seen from her through her social media. And now these books are coming out. I'm just so excited to see her grow as an author, grow as a woman, and just keep on trucking. I'm going to be following this woman very, very closely. But we had so much fun talking, and I know that there are so many questions that I wanted to ask, but there would have been too many spoilers for you guys, so I wasn't able to ask absolutely everything. But I will say that Emerald's story is a one of a kind, and I'm really excited to hear about Narcissa's story in The Herbwitch's Princess. So you guys will have to stay tuned. I'll definitely give you guys updates once she knows when that book is going to be coming out. Like she said, it's probably going to be in about a year, so you've got some time to think about it. But in the meantime, go grab The Herbwitch's Apprentice because you really should read this one right now. When we are back for our next episode, we're going to be talking to Kaya Carrington Russell and her book, The Token Huntress. Token Huntress is actually the first of many books within her series. And let's just say if you like apocalypse and vampires, you definitely want to stay tuned for this episode. So I'll talk to you next time. Have a good one. You've been listening to an episode of Read It with Whiskey. I am your host, Laura Juntunen, and I just wanted to personally hop in and say thank you so much for listening. Your support of the podcast means so much to me, and I would really appreciate it if you could go onto your favorite podcast platform and rate and review the show. By rating the show, you're going to help more people find the podcast so then we can grow. Once you review the show, share it on your social media. Share your favorite episode with your friends, and come back next time to hear more from self-published authors. I'll talk to you soon.